honourable member for Ottawa South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be splitting my time this evening with the member for Kings Hants. Can I ask the Minister, going back, if I could, to the eco-energy program for Canadians who are watching? He mentioned earlier that over 1 million Canadians have taken up the program. I'm not sure what timeline he had in place, what he's talking about, but can you tell us, please, what has been the increase in uptake in that program in the last 3 years?
Honourable Minister.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will clarify. I spoke about that at the end of 2011, we expect that 500,000 Canadians, 500,000 families will have get that program. Et Monsieur le Président, comme je disais,
Mr. Chair, as I was saying, there has been a great deal of increase in budget. In 2007, and then $300 million were invested in the Economic Action Plan, and then $205 million. And finally, $80 million to come to a total of $745 million invested in the program.
Mr. Chair, I didn't get an answer to the question. I asked him specifically, what percentage increase have we seen in 3 years? He has no answer. In 2006, the government killed $5.6 billion of climate change funding, including a commercial buildings retrofit program to help our companies and our commercial operations achieve energy efficiency. Now we learn the government is killing an eco-energy program for everyday Canadian householders, everyday Canadian homeowners and co-op and condo owners who want to do the right thing and become more energy efficient. Let me ask the Minister this next question. He's very big on metrics. He says he's doing an assessment of the program. What has been the net effect of the eco-energy program on driving energy efficiency retrofits out of the underground economy?
The Honourable Minister.
well, Mr. Speaker, we were clear in our speech from the throne that we will review the entire programs. That being said, this is the responsibility to make sure that the applicants will have their money. This is why we stopped taking any additional aucune autre application.
Any additional applications since the 31st of March?
$100 million will continue to flow this year. $300 million. This is a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. And as I said, we will review the entire suite of programs to make sure that we better invest in the economy of tomorrow. How can we have strategic investments in clean energy? And this is what we are committed for, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Chair, the net effect of what the government's doing, what the minister is doing, is abandoning the provinces. There was a federal-provincial agreement across this country to actually come together and partner on energy efficiency measures for homeowners. The federal government pulled out unilaterally without reason. Now we have millions of Canadians who are left behind, wanting to do the right thing. That's the real net effect. Let me turn to subject number 2, if I could, Mr. Chair. Environmental assessment. I'd like to ask the minister. He says there are 755,000 Canadians employed, thousands of companies. He said himself 11% of the economy. Let me ask the minister, how many of his companies that he represents, how many trade associations, industrial sectors were consulted for the environmental assessment changes brought in the dark of night, hidden in the budget bill?
Honourable Minister.
Honourable Minister.
Let me just address about the eco-energy that my colleague is raising about. This government encourages energy efficiency for low-income Canadians in a variety of ways, and $1 billion was included in budget 2009 to provide funds for renovation and energy retrofits for social housing up to 200,000 units. This new funding is flowing through the existing agreements administered by Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation on a 50-50 cost shared basis with provinces and territories, which are primarily responsible for providing social and low-income housing. This government also supports low-income Canadians through eco-energy retrofit homes collaboration with 6 provinces. Over 4,000 homes have received a pre-retrofit assessment, and over 40% have been retrofit to date, resulting in energy savings of about $512 a year per household, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Chair, here's the answer to the question I asked, because the minister doesn't know it. There was no consultation whatsoever on environmental assessment changes. The Executive Vice President of the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency has confirmed that. Secondly, no analysis has been provided by the government or by SIA for anyone to justify these changes. Thirdly, the provinces never asked for piecemeal changes. They asked for a complete re-examination of the environmental assessment regime in Canada. Fourthly, there's been no legislative scrutiny in this House or in committee. And fifthly, it's the second time that the government hides environmental changes in budget-making processes. Let me turn to subject number 3, Mr. Chair, if I could. There was a leaked secret memo released last week from the Department of Finance's Deputy Minister. It was made public just several days ago, and the ministers referred to it several times in the memo. Is he familiar with the memo and what's in it?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Chair, you know that improving the regulatory system for project reviews is critical to our economic recovery and future prosperity. Providing Canadians with clearer, simpler processes that offer improved environmental protection is a key step in building a sustainable future where our natural resources are developed responsibly. And these changes will allow assessments to start sooner, reduce delays and duplication, and deliver on speech from the throne commitment to implement, I quote, simpler, clearer processes that offer improved environmental protection and greater certainty to industry, end of quote. Monsieur le Président, soyons clairs.
Mr. Chair, let's be clear. This provides certainty to the industry, but also certainty for the public. With the CNSC and the National Energy Board, we have the power to hold public consultations as part of the environmental assessments. It's not done broadly now. It'll be done more so. It's open and transparent. I think this is good news for all Canadians.
Go then to what I asked the minister about, which is the memo. In the memo, this minister is supposed to be preparing for his prime minister for a promise his prime minister made in Pittsburgh for the G20. He is supposed to deliver within 25 days a detailed memorandum in advance of the G20 of what fossil fuel subsidies he is proposing being phased out from Canada. Can he stand here tonight and tell his constituent clients, the oil and gas and energy companies in this country who report directly to him statutorily, can he tell those people today, those companies tonight, exactly what fossil fuel subsidies he has written to the Prime Minister to phase out, or is he in abdication of his responsibility as put forward in this memo from the Deputy Minister of Finance Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Yes, Mr. Chair. You know, unlike some other countries, Canada doesn't have a general policy of subsidizing the price of fossil fuels, which can encourage overconsumption. The government has announced that it is phasing out the accelerated capital cost allowance for assets in oil sands projects. Draft income tax regulations to implement the phase-out were released on May 3rd, 2010. This initiative builds on action that Canada has taken in the past to rationalize tax preferences for fossil fuel producers. And discussions among the G20 countries on this issue are ongoing as a part of the G20 process, and countries are at different stages of eliminating inefficient subsidies.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Chair, we know that the Minister of the Environment, this minister's colleague, put forward a pre-budget submission to the Minister of Finance in which he supported the Deputy Minister of Finance's calls for the phasing out of these subsidies. Now, he lost that fight. This minister has yet to answer. Has he put forward a pre-budget submission to the Minister of Finance calling for the removal of these subsidies? He's named in this memo directly. He's being asked to comment on this memo. The Prime Minister, by the way, Mr. Chair, has been formally briefed by PCO according to this memo and told that there are a whole series of fossil fuel subsidies that should be eliminated or should be considered for elimination in the next 25 days. Once again, through you, Mr. Chair, will the minister stand tonight in this place, tell the Canadian people what his recommendations are for the elimination of fossil fuel subsidies, as he is committed to doing in terms of the promise made by the Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And as I just said clearly, you know, the government has announced that it is phasing out the accelerated capital cost allowance for assets in oil sands projects. Draft income tax regulations to implement the phase-out were released on May 3rd, 2010. This initiative builds on action that Canada has taken in the past to rationalize tax preferences for fossil fuel producers.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Can the minister name the country